China Daily website has called the U.S. tariff policy as political theater in an article posted today, April 22nd. It said that the United States tariff policy on China and even on its neighbors Canada and Mexico has become a form of political theater that experts say is designed primarily for domestic posturing rather than real economic recalibration. China Daily cited David J. Feinstein, a former U.S. diplomat, that Trump's tariffs are not a negotiating tool, and they are not about trade or economics. They are about politics, and they are purely performative, and they are for domestic, not foreign, consumptions. Feinstein, inaugural president and the CEO of the George H.W. Bush Foundation for U.S.-China Relations, noted that the measures function as a political gesture, meant to project a populist image of toughness. Tariffs are not a means to an economic end, they are a means to a political end. What they actually do is tax American importers and consumers, contribute mightily to inflation, throw people out of work, and blow out the U.S. trade deficit. Trump's tariffs threaten to raise prices for imported goods from China, Canada, and Mexico, which collectively shipped nearly $1.4 trillion worth of goods to the U.S. last year, accounting for roughly a third of all U.S. imports, according to official U.S. data. The jobs that are ostensibly created by the tariffs aren't created here. They are created in countries like Vietnam and Mexico, Feinstein added. Echoing Feinstein, political scientist John R. Taylor of the University of Texas at San Antonio described the tariff strategy as a fool's errand that will result in tears and a bad ending. Taylor noted that the use of tariffs and as a protectionist measures is not only outdated but dangerously misaligned with the realities of a deeply interconnected global economy. This is 2025, not 1895, he said, dismissing the notion that imposing blunt tariffs can magically trigger a massive reshoring of manufacturing or isolate China's high-tech sectors. Taylor said that America seeks to pursue a zero-sum game of win-win, you lose. Such an approach is not only counterproductive, but also likely to spur retaliatory measures that would further destabilize markets and ultimately harm U.S. interests. Both Feinstein and Taylor said the administration's approach of erratic impositions and subsequent flip-flops of tariffs has unsettled investors and businesses alike. Adding a historical perspective, geopolitical analyst Lawrence Freeman noted that the Trump administration's tariff strategy reflects a deep misunderstanding of its traditional economic purpose. President Trump's tariffs are not really protectionist. They are not intended to protect the growth of industry in the U.S., but instead are being used to weaponize trade with China for a political end, Freeman said. Under the guidance of early U.S. leaders like Alexander Hamilton, tariffs were a critical tool. Hamilton understood that for the former agrarian-based colonies to become a sovereign republic, the creation of a manufacturing sector was essential, Freeman said, adding that when applied correctly, tariffs fostered industrial growth and generated revenue. In stark contrast, the current policy has demonstrated a profound departure from the historically proven methods of nurturing domestic industry, according to Freeman. In Freeman's view, the Trump administration's tariffs are a short-term political maneuver that does little to foster the country's long-term industrial growth or innovations, which are among the core objectives of the Marker agenda. Rather than advancing economic prosperity, the tariffs serve as a blunt instrument to bludgeon China with populist messaging that portrays the country as a threat to U.S. dominance, he said. Despite rhetoric and aggressive tariffs, China remains the U.S. top trading partner, with bilateral trade exceeding $680 billion last year and around 73,000 U.S. companies investing in China, according to official statistics. This enduring interdependence underscores the disconnect between the administration's confrontational stance and the economic realities that drive mutual prosperity, experts said. A stable U.S.-China relationship is in the interest of both the United States and China, as well as the Asia-Pacific regions and the world, Feinstein said. No one gains from instability, unpredictability, and volatility in the relationship.